Wow. Hey, that's me and my friends. Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. We're so excited to be live with you. So my name is Teo. I'm from the Lifelong Kindergarten group, and I'm going to let all of my colleagues say hi to you too. Maybe you could start with Eric.
Hey everyone, I'm Eric. I help with videos and communications on the OctoStudio project, and also a former member of the Scratch team for about 8 years. And I'll pass over to Natalie.
I'm Natalie. I'm one of the creators of Scratch and OctoStudio. Happy to be here with you all. I'll pass to Carolina.
Hello, everyone. I'm here connecting from Cambridge today. I'm Carolina. I'm a co-organizer of the Global Creative Learning Community for the Lifelong Kindergarten and OctoStudio, and I'll pass to Craig.
Hey everyone, I'm Craig Hanning. I'm the product and engineering lead for OctoStudio. I'm super excited to be with you all today.
Amazing. And maybe we can pull up the slides while I say, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us for this session. What's new with OctoStudio? We're so excited to share some amazing updates with you. But maybe for some of you who have joined and your first question is, what's OctoStudio? First of all, I commend you on your bravery and on taking a risk and coming to learn about something new. But OctoStudio is a completely free creative coding app where young people can create any kind of story or game or animation that they can imagine. We launched this publicly in October of 2023. And it is available on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store for Android and also Chromebooks. So you can download it now if you're interested and start playing with it while we share with you some news about the app. Like I said, it's totally free. It works offline, and there's no data requirement and no ads or data tracking. So maybe we can see a little bit of what's possible with OctoStudio. So here's a short video. So because it's on a phone, first of all, the format means that it's a lot more portable on a phone or a tablet. You can be outside and bring your world into your project wherever you are. We also can make use of sensors like tilt and screen tapping. You can integrate your projects into physical craft. We can do cool things with the flashlight or the magnet sensor on phones. You can have projects across devices using Bluetooth. And one of my favorite things is it's really easy to share your project on whatever messaging app you're already using. So that's a quick intro to OctoStudio. Maybe we can go to the next slide just so I'll share a little bit of what we're doing in this session. So what's new with OctoStudio? We'll start off with sharing some examples from around the world that inspire us of how different communities are using OctoStudio. We'll also talk about some features and some updates that have come out since we last joined y'all at Scratch Conference last year. And then on top of that, we'll also share some really amazing learning resources we've launched. So to start off with some examples from around the world, I'm going to ask Natalie to, I guess we're all up here, but I'm going to invite Natalie to share an example from around the world.
Yeah, we were with our friends in South Korea Future Lab, and we were inspired by this book that's in many different languages called The House with 100 Stories by Toshio Iwai. And it's every time you look at these pages, there's different animal with like 10 stories. So there's like a mice that are living on some of the stories of this house, and you go up and there's squirrels. So there's different animals. So we were inspired by the work of Toshio Iwai, and that inspired us to invite young people to create projects using OctoStudio and crafts to make a home for one of their favorite animals. So, for example, this young person has hermit crabs in an aquarium. So she was making a box. She made an OctoStudio project with code, but also was making a whole aquarium with crafts. In the next slide, you can see one of the young people. She loves otters, and she had otters catching shrimp and apologizing to them, but she's bringing them to this restaurant for otters. And you can see there's tables There's a place for them to lie down and eat. So there was a lot of inspiration. On the next page, you can see just a variety at the end of the workshop. All the kids put together the things they had created, some realistic homes for animals, some imaginary, and it was just a whole big exhibit, which was really inspiring. And then Teo's going to give an example.
Yeah, maybe we can play the video so we can hear the music, because I found this really, really inspiring. So this is from an organization called Unstructured Studio in Rajasthan, India. And they did this activity around traditional puppetry called Kathputi and OctoStudio. And so this really uses art and craft and coding, storytelling, and even filmmaking ideas to have young people bring their stories to life. And we really see, inspiring examples every week from around the world. It's really hard to pick just a couple to highlight, but I wanted to share this one with y'all today. Maybe we can go back. Yeah, I wanted to share this one with y'all today because Unstructured Studio really blogged about the activity. They created an activity guide and a facilitator guide. They have example videos. So I think it's a really inspiring and might help you come up with your own similar activities. If you want to check them out, you can scan the QR code. And now we're going to hear a little bit about some feature updates that have happened in the past year. So over to Craig.
Right. Thanks, Teo. So Beam continues to be one of our most popular features. Yeah, maybe before we play the video, I'll talk a little bit about it. So Beam, if you haven't already seen this feature, it's a way of just sending wireless messages between two devices that are running OctoStudio. So it's a way of wirelessly communicating between two devices, which is great for building interactive projects or collaborating with each other, doing all kinds of things between devices, which is a lot of fun. So it's really easy to get started. You can just send simple messages and they can be received around. You don't have to go through a cumbersome pairing process or anything. So this student designed a project making a watering can with one of the devices. And when he shakes the watering can, it beams some water over to the tree to glow. And you can also see the flashlight on the back of the devices turning on whenever the shake event happens. So it really makes for a compelling experience with these two devices. And then this video will show off a few more examples of just some of the possibilities with Beam. So I'll let this play and then we can talk through some of this. You see on the left side, there's a sender, and then on the right side, there's a receiver. So these are two projects that are sending and then receiving a beam from the nearby device. An example of sending a sprite to another device, and then a magic wand, and then, of course, playing a game with a friend at a distance, which is an awful lot of fun as we started to play with it. So one of the challenges with the Beam, because it's so easy to get started, and we started with only 8 unique symbols to beam around. We noticed that inside of classrooms or in larger workshop settings, it was a little bit challenging to facilitate because you'd get some crosstalk between groups. So if you send out a heart, maybe everyone nearby was receiving that same heart message, which didn't always work well if you had 2 groups that were trying to use the same symbols. So what we did is inside of the block menu, you can turn on another option called channel number. And that gives you a bunch of different channels that you can put your beam messages on, which can isolate your beams from other beams nearby. So just as an example, one group could be using channel number 1, and then they only receive beams from other people who are on that same channel. So this opens up a lot more possibilities. So we went from 8 to 8 times 99 possible beam options now. So we have many, many more options for beaming to friends. So I think that's it with Beam. And then I'm going to share a little bit more next. So we've also started to make some app expansions, I guess we'll say, not changes, because the app on mobile devices looks very similar today as it used to. But what we've done is for larger devices like tablets, we've made the whole layout more responsive. So if you have a larger device and you have more screen real estate, we now offer a landscape mode, which lets you turn your device on the side and use it to have a little bit more area for blocks coding, and it just kind of fits a tablet interface a little bit better. So when you go into the settings now, if you're on a device, a large device like a tablet, you can go into the device settings and you'll see this option with a toggle switch to go between portrait and landscape mode, and that will set the editor accordingly when you see it. So this is a little change that we made just to the overall responsiveness, but this let us start to think about how we might expand OctoStudio to new platforms, which Eric's going to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so I have this is breaking news. This is very new news. The maybe number one piece of feedback, I'm not sure if you'd say that, Natalie, but yeah, maybe the number one piece of feedback we got was, hey, can you make a version of OctoStudio on the Chromebook? And so we've been working really hard on this, and we actually just launched it in June. You probably saw that video earlier and were wondering, like, are you going to be shaking your Chromebook to play your projects? And I can assure you there's no shaking of the Chromebooks. We put our heads together and came up with some sensor controls. So you still have those blocks, but they look a little bit different in the Chromebook version. And so I put together this video. It's like only 45 seconds that sort of shows you OctoStudio on Chromebook in action. OctoStudio is available on Chromebooks. This new Chromebook version is like OctoStudio for phones and tablets. You can use it to make games and animations anytime, anywhere, with a few small differences. Instead of tilting the device, you use the tilt joystick. And instead of shaking the device, you just click the shake button. We did the same thing for magnet. So instead of passing a magnet over your device, you'll just go ahead and click the magnet button. Chromebooks can't send beams, but they can receive beams, which is a lot of fun. Also on Chromebook, you can save to Google Drive or export to Google Classroom. It's available right now in the Google Play Store. We can't wait to see what you'll create. Cool. And the last bit of that video, you heard me mention that you can save your project to Google Drive and Google Classroom, which I know is probably exciting to a lot of folks. So actually, I'll have Teo and Craig share a bit more about ways to share. And before we do that, I'm actually wondering, Craig and Natalie, you all worked really hard on Chromebook. Is there anything I missed that you wanted to share?
No, I think you covered it, Eric, really well. And just to maybe point out, in case folks missed this little detail, is projects created on the phone or on a tablet will work just the same on the Chromebook, and which was one of the things Eric was mentioning, is those sensors will work in either environment, even if they look a little bit different. So projects created in one place can be shared with the other type of devices just fine. So thanks, Eric.
Cool, thanks.
So then, talking about sharing projects, since the launch of OctoStudio, you've been able to share your project, like record it as a video or a GIF and send that through any kind of messaging app or platform that you already use, like iMessage, text, email. But you can also share a project file. So if you want to preserve interactivity, or if you want somebody to be able to open your project, see the code, and remix it in their own OctoStudio app, you can share a project file. We have a really exciting update about file sharing that I'm going to pass over to Craig.
All right. Thanks, Teo. So we had a recent advancement in Padlet. And for those who aren't aware, Padlet is a web platform that you can use to collaborate and share resources. So you can create boards and attach content. It has commenting and moderation tools, and they have a fairly generous free tier as well. So we really love Padlet. But previously, when you'd upload an OctoStudio project to Padlet, it wouldn't show you any information about the file. It would just kind of appear as a generic file, which worked, but it wasn't so friendly looking. So fortunately, we met our friends at Padlet, and they were very excited about OctoStudio and excited to extend support to OctoStudio project files. So now when you share a project to Padlet, it will automatically display the thumbnail of the project and also the title from the project directly. So it really looks wonderful when you upload projects. And this is nice if you want to curate collections or have students commenting on each other's projects. It's a really wonderful collaborative space. Sharing to Padlet and downloading projects from Padlet works a lot more seamlessly if you have the Padlet mobile app. It still works through the website without the app, but we've noticed that it's a bit more of a seamless experience, or less taps if you have the app. You can get the projects in and out of OctoStudio a little bit quicker. But we're really excited to share that because we're big fans of Padlet and the work they're doing. In addition to Padlet and other sharing platforms, we know a lot of folks are using different learning platforms. Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams. There's a lot of popular learning platforms out there today. And we've learned that there is fairly wide support for OctoStudio in these platforms already. You can, as Theo mentioned, you can export your project as an MP4 video, and that's a great way to attach your project into an LMS. But all of the LMSs that we've discovered, except for Seesaw at this point, Seesaw only allows video, but all the other ones allow you to actually submit an OctoStudio project file as an assignment or submit it into your LMS, which is really great if you have an assignment and you want to collect the students' projects or get them sharing with one another. So there is fairly good support right now for OctoStudio projects within many LMSs. If you find that not to be the case, though, please reach out to us, because this is an area we always want to learn more about and improve, because we know there's many LMSs in the world today. So yeah, thanks. And then with that, I think Natalie is going to share a little bit of some of the work we've done around accessibility in OctoStudio.
Yeah, there's been lots of work, ongoing work on accessibility by Katya, Zoe, and many others on our team. It supports screen readers. So if you have screen reader turned on Android or iOS, you can read your blocks and put them together. So this is great for anyone, including blind and low vision learners, can be creating with OctoStudio. And then you can hear your project. Anyone can turn on sound effects for the blocks, also known as sonification. So whatever would be visual on the screen, you can also hear. For example, jump, you can hear a boing sound. And then there's many different ways to express yourself, both visually and then with sound and haptic feedback. And the next video shows a little bit of that sonification. So while you can, as I mentioned, you can turn on sound effects for coding blocks. If you turn on the screen reader, that will automatically be on. And now you can hear your code as it runs on the screen. So like the turning, you hear it. And then as your character moves around the screen, you can hear that the pitch changes up or going down, and also it pans left and right. And we've been happy to hear and see some posts from educators about using accessibility with students. For example, Pauline Mas wrote that their students, they were very happy that their blind students were also able to make projects with OctoStudio, and Deaf Kids Code, who've done a lot of work with Scratch, have also been using OctoStudio and showing some wonderful works that young people have created as part of their program. And I will pass to Carolina to talk about some of the new learning resources that have been developed.
Yes, so one thing that we would love to share with you as what's new and what's going on with OctoStudio is definitely the learning resources. And I see already that people have been asking about it in the chat. So yeah, so we would like to share with you that whenever you want to look for the learning resources of OctoStudio, you can go to the octostudio.org page. And right there, we're going to have this learn section in the menu, and you can go there and find like this different resources that we have been working with in the past years. And just to say what's new, right? Like, okay, so what's new with learning resources? Like recently we worked with the National Geographic educational team to create this resources around OctoStudio. So one of them that we just launched was the Explore Your World with OctoStudio, where we like based, inspired by what National Geographic calls as a Nat Geo explorer, that is like someone that is out in nature doing research and learning from the environment and connecting all of this with science mainly, and lots of empathy too for animals and for the world we live around. And inspired by that, we created this different resources with learning with National Geographic. And some of them you're going to be able to see in our page, in Nat Geo's page, that is like this introduction video where we create quickly, a very starting project of OctoStudio in that theme. And then we have this educator guide that also has this slides deck, that you can remix. You can do it in your own way for your classroom or the group of participants in your workshop or whatever activity you're doing it with OctoStudio. Then also this student activity guide that is something that you can print or you can even share digitally, in a big screen, but it's something that can support people to do their own path in the activity. So it's just like you have all the imagine, create, and share moments there with some support also with coding. And, coding cards that can be useful for that. There's a specific thing I want to do. I want to beam, but I don't know exactly how to do it. So you can find a card, a coding card that is going to explain what you should use in terms of making a beam moment in your project, but not exactly following the same project as is in the card, right? And other things too, like I'm saying that we are, this learning resource specifically with National Geographic has this inspirational about like what is to be an explorer in the world, right? What is to respect nature and doing things around it. And one of the other resources that was created mainly by National Geographic on this was like this story about the explorer that we are getting inspiration from. So this is, other things that you are going to find there. And this is the one that is already there. It's published. People have been using it already, and we have been seeing great things about it. And soon we're going to have this new resource with National Geographic too that is making a mini game with OctoStudio, and it's inspired in this amazing researcher that is a shark, empathetic person who has been doing great work also and inspiring work in nature. So we hope that this will inspire both like educators and students everywhere to work with OctoStudio in a nature setting. The other thing we're going to find there, and just as a heads up, many people know that the reference guide is this guide that we have like about OctoStudio app and how to, what you're going to find in the app, what each thing means there, what this block can do or what cannot, and how it works. It's mainly a reference, a guide to go to whenever you have a specific doubt about the app itself, right? It's not like an instructional guide or something to actually follow to create a class or anything, but it has been pretty popular in our community, and it was recently updated, at least the English version now. It's updated on the website, so you're welcome to go and check this out. This resource that has been around, I also saw that someone asked, in the chat, oh, what are the learning resources we have for OctoStudio? And someone else, some participants said, oh, there is this OctoStudio explorations page. It's because it's so popular, it was made by the Tinkering Studio, and they have been exploring a lot OctoStudio, the digital part with the physical part, so lots of crafting there and science explorations too. So you can always check that out to get inspired and learn how to make different things. And I want to call Eric here because there's
even more. We got more. We're coming at you. So this past December, we participated in Hour of Code with these two new activities: create a creature and make a tilt game. They're so open-ended. So any creature you can draw, take a photo of, choose from the library. It's great for folks that are getting started. Each activity has a page, and on that page is several resources. You have an intro video that get you started with the project. It's like about 5 minutes. Then 3 other short videos with things to try, like maybe you want to add a score or add a power-up, things like that. And while this is an Hour of Code activity, there are 8,759 other hours in the year that this is a great activity to do with OctoStudio. And we mentioned this last year at Scratch Conference. We have this YouTube channel, and every single week, we've been releasing a new tutorial video, a YouTube short, or like a long form video that's like 8 to 10 minutes. I don't think there's quite 52 since the last time we spoke. We might have taken a week off, but anyways, it's just like endless inspiration for you to get started with OctoStudio. And I also want to share one other exciting thing, which is there's been some new performance enhancements to OctoStudio as well in the past year. So maybe, Craig, you can share a bit more about that.
Thanks, Eric. So maybe the moment you've all been waiting for, performance improvements, or maybe not, but I'll tell you why we're really excited about this, because it is something that's really important to us. We care a great deal about, designing resources or implementing new features in OctoStudio. But it's also really important to us that OctoStudio works on as many devices as possible. So we've spent a lot of time over this past year finding ways to improve performance within the app for devices that don't have necessarily high-end resources or maybe are a little bit older devices. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a before and after of our Win Touches block. And this is maybe an extreme case, so you may not have seen performance quite as bad as the top one. But what we did in testing is we created many, many sprites, and we did a Win Touches on all of them just to see really how bad performance could be on a lower end device. And then after making all of our performance improvements in this area, you can see the after video down below. So significantly faster there. And there's across the app, we've made all kinds of these improvements, which will hopefully mean that it works even better on many more devices in the world. So there's been faster block and sprite renders, Win Touches. We have a very small memory and storage footprint. So the Android app today comes out to about 25 megabytes for the total download. And when you update the app, it's even less than that. So we're really trying to commit ourselves to keeping the footprint as small as possible. And as Teo mentioned earlier, the app operates entirely offline. There's no data privacy concerns. There's no data connectivity even within OctoStudio. So while we've designed it to connect to many ways or to be able to share OctoStudio projects with many different platforms and systems, OctoStudio itself, the app, doesn't consume any data. So we're hoping that this makes it a lot easier to be able to integrate it within whatever setting you work in. So this is just, just a little bit of what we've been doing over the past year related to performance, and we'll continue doing this work in the future as well. So with that, I think I'll send it back to Eric, actually, to talk about how to connect.
Yeah, we love to stay in touch. And if you want the newest news about OctoStudio, you can join our mailing list there. You can also follow us on social media. So we're at OctoStudio app. We're on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. And so it's a great way to stay up to date on what's happening with OctoStudio. And with that, I already see there's some questions coming in, but maybe I'll toss over to Carolina and we can start. We have a lot of time, which is great for some Q&A. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that sounds good. I think now we can even stop sharing the screen there and have everyone on the big screen. Cool. Well, as I said, I was already following the chat here. So many great comments and questions. And one thing, I guess like one of the new things was about the Chromebook version, right? And so someone asked, does it work in all computers or just Chromebooks? And who would like to answer that?
I'm happy to. So yeah, right now it's just mobile devices, so Android, iOS, and then Chromebooks because they can run Android apps. We haven't yet started to think about how we might extend OctoStudio to the web. One of the reasons being when you see the app, there's so many sensors that are sort of integrated. It's really, it's about bringing in photos. It's about having sensors, being able to collaborate. Beam projects wouldn't necessarily work in the web browser. So we're certainly not going to do a web version of OctoStudio, but or just a Windows or a Mac version. It'll be something we may consider over time. But as of right now, it's just for Chromebooks and mobile devices.
Thanks, Craig. There are other questions, and unfortunately, I cannot see here who made it, but if you want to emphasize that in the chat, I'll be glad. And I think that's also for you, Craig. Is there an extension to add within Scratch, actually, to connect or communicate to OctoStudio? That's such an interesting question.
That is a really interesting question. So you could imagine an extension maybe that uses Beam. It doesn't exist today. That's a really exciting idea, though, and one I'll definitely go and think more about after this session. As of right now, there's no direct way, like Beam or with extensions, to communicate between OctoStudio and Scratch. But never say never. It's a really compelling idea, and we love the idea of these projects working together someday. So I do think we'll think about that. So as far as Scratch, no, there are other platforms like Microblocks is a really interesting one using the microbit that has a way of beaming to OctoStudio. But as of right now, no direct connection between Scratch and OctoStudio.
Amazing, yeah. Well, as I said before, someone asked where could we find learning resources on OctoStudio, and we can always go to our octostudio.org page, and they're gonna find the Learn side of it with everything we have been sharing here. I don't know if we see any other questions or comments.
I might just mention that we've definitely built a lot of the ideas from scratch and made them compatible. And one thing we've heard is that sometimes young people are using it, depending what device you have, you might use it, but also sometimes for younger kids transitioning, like say from Scratch Junior, start using OctoStudio and then Scratch. So it could, but they each have different features, but learning one helps you then get creative with the other. And they have, like, again, OctoStudio has some unique features we've highlighted, like beam, triggering with a magnet. It makes it easier to embed in things, a little bit easier to start learning. Scratch has many more extensions and connections with the physical world. But again, we see it's really nice to see young people learning with one and then going to the other, depending, like say they're traveling. Paula Bonta, who created it with us, she had a vision that OctoStudio, like if you're on the bus, how could you make something on the bus if you just have a mobile device or out in the world? And so, yeah, we get inspired by each other and share ideas.
Mm-hmm. I want to bring also some comments from the community here. Like there's, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it not correctly, but Sowan Kim is saying, I'm hosting an OctoStudio workshop with parents in early August, and I think the new features will be really helpful. And I want to just highlight the parents part. It's like, it's another, I think it's another vision that you all had, like in the beginning of the OctoStudio, conceptions, like, this would be such an interesting tool to use at home, right? Like something to play with, to create together with your parents, as they're saying, but also with your siblings, cousins, like friends. And yeah, what can you do with the device that you have at home, like such a phone or a tablet or something that is, sometimes even shared in between the family. Anyway, I really love this question that is coming from Petra. Is asking, is there a community building within OctoStudio like in Scratch?
I can try it.
I can start.
Okay.
No, we don't have a centralized online community like the Scratch online community. We have seen a community forming on our YouTube channel, and we do community compilations. So every couple weeks, Zoe and I will put together a short video that highlight projects that have been shared on YouTube. And it's really wonderful to see kids being inspired by one another and sharing their projects on the YouTube platform. So I wanted to share that bit about the OctoStudio online community, or what's happening on YouTube, that is.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, and just when, so there's also Padlet for curating your own online communities. It's not, we realize it's not exactly the same. It's a bit more decentralized as the Scratch community, but there are other platforms that you can use to build sort of smaller micro communities, whether that's in a learning system, an LMS, whether it's in like a Padlet system or some other way. We've made it easy to export OctoStudio projects with the hope is that you can build a community with these projects somewhere. We've even seen communities start up in WhatsApp groups, which is sort of another smaller community of sharing projects. So
yeah. Also, I want to go.
Maybe you're going to mention the same thing, Cara, but I also wanted to mention the Brazilian Creative Learning mural, because they also support OctoStudio files. And we've seen like so many Brazilian educators sharing their different activities that they're trying out, asking each other questions. And so that's another place that you can go to get the community vibe. And, like Craig was saying, it feels like the OctoStudio community around the world is much more decentralized. Like you might find pods of it in different parts. And then there's also some online spaces where you could connect with people around OctoStudio and what you're doing. And anything that you share on the social media platforms that Eric shared earlier, and you tag us or you hashtag OctoStudio app, like we love to see that and reshare that on our platforms as well. So we think of community as just existing in many different places online and in the real world.
Yeah. And I want to mention something too that I love about Scratch and I love about OctoStudio as a potential too, is that community also means your local and in-person community. And that sometimes, it's like we have Scratch available offline. We have OctoStudio now just available offline. And that creates such an opportunity to create together. And there's so many things happening, right? That we have so many schools around the world that use Scratch only offline and sharing between themselves, right? So also like Scratch days and events like that, where you gather with people in person to create, to share. And we also celebrate this a lot. And we think, okay, what is the possibility also around these communities that are mainly local and in person and more like intimate than the online one. We do have some minutes left now for Q&A. We can continue in this moment, right, where you can make questions. We're going to answer that. And I just want to bring a comment that I found really interesting in the chat. Like someone saying that, I'm sorry who said it, but someone saying that is interesting to use the Chromebook version in a tablet because that then you can use the controller there too. But I think that's something pretty specific. And then if you want to share more on how you have been doing that, so we would love to know. But
I think Chiara has a question.
I think and also I want to bring like Lula's comment as well, like just saying that Chromebooks are such an important device in Latin America. So having OctoStudio on Chromebooks makes a lot of sense to the community there. Yes, Eric. So Chiara asked, will there be a studio feature being developed? And I'm gonna pass that to Craig to say.
Sure, yeah. So as far as a studio, we're working for projects that we can host, which unfortunately are not community projects right now because of data privacy reasons. But it's projects that we're creating internally or ones that we have media permissions for. We are starting to build collections of projects that we'll be able to host on our website, which will hopefully help inspire people of all the different project types and capabilities inside of OctoStudio. So we hope to launch those kind of collection project pages very soon on octostudio.org. And then the other usage, I think we could imagine some of this appearing is on Padlet. Now that Padlet offers the ability to upload OctoStudio projects, it'll be really wonderful to start to see some studios emerge there where people are submitting their projects and curating them within Padlet.
Yeah. I guess what I'm seeing here is like there are some people that, as Theo mentioned, like were brave to come in and get to know OctoStudio for the first time. So I guess nothing is so obvious to share, right? And then I want to connect this to the question from Ryan. Like, I'm wondering if there are any hardware possibilities that can connect to physical outputs, motor, lights, speakers. And I want to connect this question to what are the physical connections that OctoStudio can do? Like, how can we bring OctoStudio to the physical world and vice versa? How, through sensors and things like that. So how does that work, for mobile device?
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about extensions. Maybe before then, though, Eric, would you want to talk a little bit about the physical connections via magnet, shake, or these ones that we use in OctoStudio? And then I'll talk about maybe hardware connections to things like microbit.
Sure. My connection drops. Maybe can you rephrase the question?
Oh, sure. And if someone else wants to jump in, it's just I feel like I've answered.
I'd be happy to. It sounded very interesting. I'm happy to jump in.
The physical connections without thinking about other devices, but just what are the OctoStudio that we have built in now?
Oh no, it's been so fun. Yeah. So the YouTube channel actually is a great place to go to see some of this in action if you want. So the magnet is great. So you can actually hover a magnet over your device and it could act as like a hat block to trigger your code. So you can make like a magic wand where like when I pass it by the phone, the rabbit jumps out of the hat, or like strum a magnetic guitar. And it's a really simple way to connect the physical to the digital.
It's very magical.
It's very magical. Magnet, yes. Magical magnets. I like the shake block, like the accelerometer in the phone. Like you could put your phone in your pocket And then like when you jump, it like makes a sound, or like when you jump, you could beam to another device and have your character jump. So like when you're creating, you can bring OctoStudio like into your world. I actually like attached it to my wrist, and like when I was hitting a tennis ball, it was like meowing, or like you make a step counter. So it's like you don't need any extra peripheral devices. It's just like right there for you. I could go on and on, but like, and then there's the shake, there's the tilt sensors. So it's like, if you got a phone or a tablet, you got a lot of possibilities to connect to the physical world.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the flashlight.
And it's a flashlight and a buzz.
Really cool thing. Look, we've done some workshops around explorations with light and shadow. So, you know, bringing in different shapes or opacity objects and laying them out. And then the OctoStudio app is like a really low floor way to get started with like experimenting with that phenomenon.
Yeah.
Can I pitch a video that I made? Sorry.
I just want to add a comment from the chat too, that Lula again, so into the session, like she's saying, it's also so important to recognize this possibility as something accessible to the communities, where you don't have to have an extra device or get another thing to make that work with the physical world. Like everything is already embedded into your phone or tablet or what you already have, right? So this is pretty important too.
Yeah. Thanks for that comment, Lula. That's a great point. And so while we are really excited about what we can do with the device and in the device, we are also really interested in thinking about potential hardware connections to OctoStudio. So I know Microbit was mentioned in the chat. And if folks know me, I built the Microbit extension for Scratch. I care a great deal about connecting coding to the physical world and finding different ways to do so. So it's taken some restraint on my part to not just start with extensions first, but not for lack of wanting this, but just because we have so many other areas to focus inside of OctoStudio. And as we said, we really wanted to focus on the device itself before we started to branch out. But with that, we are now getting to the stage where we're starting to brainstorm around what might hardware extensions look like in OctoStudio. Are there things that we can learn from past extension implementations so that we can do this, again, in a little bit more of a decentralized way, since that's a large focus for OctoStudio. So we don't have a definite timeline for this, but I will say that we are committed to now thinking about how we might integrate hardware extensions, especially Microbit, into OctoStudio. And I think that can open up a whole lot of new possibilities. Before we go back, I think there were two other questions that we had just missed earlier. There was one about clever.
Wait, I just want to give Eric, because I think Eric wanted to pitch a related video.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry.
Before we move on.
Sorry, maybe I got too excited. But so one I think really awesome example of connecting physical and digital using like almost all the sensors is you can make an interactive water bottle. And so like when you tilt the water bottle, you can use a tilt sensor, and then it could sort of flash and like give you points as you sort of sip water. And that's one of the YouTube tutorials. And I think that one's just one of my favorites. And it's a great entryway into this. And just to add on to Craig talking about some of the work that we're doing, shameless plug, definitely follow us on social media and the email list, because that's where you'll find the latest updates for OctoStudio between now and next Scratch conference. So thank you for humoring me to share the interactive water bottle.
Oh, that's great.
I love just one final comment on this that is coming from the chat. And I think, is it Vanya that is saying that loving OctoStudio, that loves that OctoStudio can mix the physical and digital materials. And she just describes it as life and imagination. So I think it's a lot about that. It's like your real world being part of, just like, and being able to play with that in a more broad way. I also want to say that Sylvia is saying, oh, I will try out OctoStudio with my students. And I think this is one of the things that we love the Scratch conference for. We are able to connect to people who have been doing creative learning or doing working with Scratch already, and then find out about this other way of exploring creative computing. And because of that, we also want to share, at the end, we're going to share like this email and this way of contact us in case you're doing work with OctoStudio, you want to share a bit more, or you have questions. Anyway, we'd love to know about your experience too. So we have another question Do we? I think you were mentioning that.
Yes, there was two. I think one
Yeah.
about clever single sign-on, and just to mention, because OctoStudio doesn't have account systems or any cloud connectivity, you wouldn't sign into OctoStudio directly via Clever. But if you're signed into other services with your Clever single sign-on, you should be able to export OctoStudio projects and then upload them or attach them into those platforms. So we won't have direct Clever integration because we don't have the account system, but it should still work well within those other platforms that you're using Clever for. And then there was a great question about Beam, and it was how many devices can be connected with the Beam feature, which is a lovely question. And then we've also heard how far can the Beam feature go, which are really great questions that sometimes you just have to try and see. As far as how many, because there's no direct connectivity, it's really as many devices are within range of you should be able to receive this. So if you're in a space with 100 phones, it should get to all 100. But we've noticed with Bluetooth, you'll see there's a lot of kind of crosstalk and challenges when you get that many devices in one space. There's no real limit. It's just sort of a try and see. And same thing with distance. I think when you read Bluetooth spec, it says, 30 meters. In practice, it really depends on the environment you're in. Outdoors, unobstructed, it may go further. In a cement walled room, it might not go that far. So it really depends. You'll have to experiment with it and kind of see.
Less of a question, more of a dare, I feel.
It's kind of a dare. I'll call that.
Yeah, actually, Cicely and I, at one point, we had a project and we were like trying from different floors, the Media Lab, but not too far away, we were able to beam. So yeah, we'll be interested to hear about your experiments.
Yeah. I want to say too that there's using the physical, the digital, playing lots of that. And Edward, a long time friend of ours here in LOK, is sharing the chat. I think he just facilitated an activity that is a universe in a box, and I think it's just one of these wonderful examples of what educators and researchers have been doing in terms of experimenting with OctoStudio and seeing different possibilities in different themes and different proposals for students. So yeah, we definitely recommend you to see that out. Check that out too. Anything else we want to?
I see there's 3 new questions. I can take the one, where is Zinnia from Andres?
Yeah.
So I think it's a super fan asking this question. So Zinnia is a member of the Scratch team who co-hosts videos with me on YouTube. Zinnia is taking a much-deserved vacation, but we'll be back soon. So you can look forward to more Zinnia videos.
Well, there is such an interesting question here. I think it's worth for us to chat a bit about it. Francis, I think that Zale is asking, but if a student doesn't have their own account, how can they save a project? How can they save and share? Natalie, do you want to go for this one?
Or Teo, were you going to say? There's a different ways. Yeah, go ahead. Teo.
Yeah, there's a few different ways. So one thing that I want to mention is that, you have OctoStudio downloaded on a device. The project is saving as you make it. And every time you go back to the home screen, it also gets saved. So you won't lose the project from that app on that device. Now, this probably is a question around a device that's shared among students across different classrooms or workshops. And we've dealt with this and seen other people deal with this in different ways. The sharing a project out is a key part of it. So you might export the project file, video, or both to Google Classroom or Google Drive or another content management system. You might have a student, if it's on iPhones, they might AirDrop a file to a personal device, or maybe they can email it to themselves. There's a host of different ways to deal with, shared devices and young people wanting to maybe work on their projects at home, on their tablet at home, or on their parents' devices. And so that's actually one of the things that I think is pretty cool about OctoStudio, that you can easily share the file around and pick it up wherever you are. So, I don't know if Natalie, you have more to add to that.
Yeah. Well, I've even seen shared devices that have no email, no anything. So I think Teo gave a ton of many options, but if none of those work for you, there's even one more option, which is sounds a little bit old school now, but you could take a flash drive and we have an option to save the project to your files. And if you truly were on a device that had no connectivity, you could try to plug a flash drive into it, save the project to that, and get it off. So we've tried to make many different ways of exporting the project outside of OctoStudio so that you can back it up and however works for you, whether that's email, another web service, or just physically copying the file off.
And I didn't even know this until recently, but you can get like an adapter for a thumb drive and connect that to your phone or tablet and save it directly.
It's pretty amazing.
Cool. Mhm.
I want to come back to just, saying that we shared a bit about how now it's possible to easily share with Padlet in case you use that. And we are seeing in the chat many people who use Padlet. And so it was even a comment from the moderation of the conference, like, wow, Padlet is a huge thing here. So we're happy that this might be useful for the community. A few other comments, like Chiara from South Africa, saying that they recently hosted an event with parents and kids that was such a hit. The parents were completely mind blown with the engagement from their children. And I don't know, Tao, if you want to say a little bit about the family creative learning aspect of it, just connecting to this idea of engaging.
Yeah, sure.
family.
I mean, Chiara, I would love to hear more about that event. I don't know if you can share with us or on social media. I'm sure it would be like inspiring to many people in the OctoStudio community around the world. But here in Cambridge, for the month of July, we've been doing a series of workshops under the family creative learning model. We'll be doing them in the community space in some affordable housing apartments here. And we've been inviting, full families to come, and it's kids and their parents, but also their cousins and grandparents, and then their neighbors. And we just, we always have dinner together, which is really nice. And then we have time to play with OctoStudio and with physical crafts and materials. And it's just been so joyful. And we're seeing like week after week, one kid tells their neighbors and then they come the next week. And also seeing parents really want to connect with their kids over technology, especially in this community where it's basically all of these families are immigrant families. It's been just like really special to see that this is a tool that can bridge that gap because of how low floor and wide walls it is, and just seeing like young people and parents collaborate on something together and share that joy and that learning is like really, really wonderful. And I can't wait to after this month wraps up to make something that we can like share out to the world too about the experience.
Thanks, Tao, for sharing. I guess I really wanted you to share about this because also it's not the work that we are doing as the Lifelong Kindergarten Group, but it's mostly what kind of thing we feel it could be important and interesting around the OctoStudio community. And also an invitation, okay, what is your experience with that? Like Chiara is sharing here, like other of you are also sharing the chat, and we appreciate that so much. We want to save this chat because while we're presenting, cannot see everything, but we saw that many people have been sharing a bit of what they are doing, what they have tried, what they want to try with OctoStudio. And I think, and also like after this, all of us here presenting are also feeling like, okay, I also want to try this. I want to think more about that. And this is such a creative learning community for us. So thank you so much for all of it. And also like just to connect to one more thing, a question that we missed. Pierre was saying, is there currently an OctoStudio ambassador program? Like, I'm training a lot of teachers, they said, in OctoStudio in my country. And I think it's all about this too. Like, let's share more and more about what we have been doing, It's not because we don't have like the online community there that we cannot share with each other. So please let us know, reach out to us, if you have a Padlet, put that somewhere so we can see it. And we would love to see not only the projects, but the initiatives that you have been doing with your own communities and with other educators, or families, as we're saying anyway. So it's great to just be here and to learn about all that. I think we're running out of time. So if it's okay, we can just put the slides back on to say thank you. And Natalie, do you want to share a bit more?
Yeah, I know that Jenny JL on our team is very responsive as we want to hear from you about your experience. Definitely join the mailing list. And if you have a question, suggestion, or comment, also feel free to email us at educator@octostudio.org. So again, as Carol said, I mean, really from the beginning, before the beginning, OctoStudio was inspired by educators, many of community-based educators, including many of you online, Lula, Kiara, Linford, Solomon. Many people contributed from around the world to the ideas that shaped OctoStudio, and we feel like that joy and creativity comes out. And again, we're just happy to have all of you here and continue to learn and shape and add new features to OctoStudio based on your suggestions.
Yay.
I think that's a great place to end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Just say yes, we agree, and we love to be here. Thank you so much,
Can we
everyone.
do our goodbye? Many of
Goodbye.
our octopus.
See you soon. See you in the next one.
See you in the next
I'll
one.
see you around in
See
the
ya.
conference. Yeah.
Nice.